"Don't open the laundry room door," she said, without turning around. She was rinsing strawberries in the sink, her back to me, water running too long for how few berries were left in the bowl. I froze halfway across the hallway, holding a coffee mug I suddenly didn't want anymore. It was 7:42 a.m., and my blood ran cold, because I hadn't said a word. I hadn't made a sound, and I had just stepped off the third stair, the one that creaks. She couldn't have heard me, but she knew. "Don't open it," she repeated, this time slower, like a warning. I blinked, looked at the laundry room door. It was closed, perfectly normal, beige, scratched near the bottom from the cat. Nothing weird about it, except last night I was the one who locked it, not her, me, and I was very sure I hadn't unlocked it since. I placed the mug down quietly on the hallway table. It made a soft clink. She still didn't turn around. "What's in there?" I asked. Silence. Only the slow, surgical rinse of water over fruit. She was waiting for me to push, and I almost did. Almost. But then she said it, soft, like a whisper slipping under a locked door. "If you love me, don't." I stood there longer than I want to admit, my hands shaking, my head a fire alarm, my gut twisting itself into origami animals that spelled run. And then the front door opened. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I heard the keys drop. A pair of boots hit the floor, a voice say, "He's still here?" And another voice answer, her voice, calmly, "No." I told him to wait outside, but I hadn't moved. I was still right there, right in the hallway, and the laundry room door was beginning to open, from the inside. I didn't breathe. I don't even think I blinked. The laundry room door was moving, just slightly, maybe an inch at first, but enough that I could see the sliver of black between the door and the frame. There was no draft in the house, no open windows, no reason for that door to open unless someone, or something, was on the other side. And still, I stood there, frozen. I didn't want to see it, but I couldn't look away. From the kitchen, I heard the faucet turn off, water dripping onto a plate. The strawberries, I guessed. That stupid detail sticks in my head. The sound of water sliding off fruit while everything else cracked beneath me. The front door had definitely opened moments earlier. Someone had come in. Someone who wasn't me. And someone who, apparently, thought I was gone. But I was still in the hallway, standing between the kitchen and the laundry room, between her voice and that door, between two truths I didn't understand yet. A slow, deliberate hand appeared through the crack. Just fingers first. Fingertips so pale they looked dusted in flour. They wrapped around the edge of the doorframe from inside the laundry room, gently pulling it wider open. My knees buckled a little. I didn't recognize the hand. It wasn't hers, not even close. It was shaking, barely. Like whoever was in there wasn't just trying to open the door quietly. They were scared to come out. Scared. Or hurt. I wanted to say something, ask who it was, demand an explanation. But my voice died before it left my mouth. I could hear footsteps now, coming down the hallway behind me, and I panicked. I ducked into the coat closet. I know, that sounds pathetic, but I wasn't thinking like a man anymore. I was thinking like prey. Through the crack in the closet door, I saw her, my wife, holding a dish towel, drying her hands, walking right past me like she didn't even care where I was. She didn't call my name. She didn't check outside. She just passed. Behind her came someone else, tall, heavy. I couldn't see his face from where I was, just his boots and the way he moved. Like he owned the hallway, like he belonged there. They both stood in front of the laundry room now, and the hand, the shaking, pale hand, immediately vanished. The door clicked shut. Quickly. Quietly. She leaned against it. He stood beside her. "You have to decide what to do with it," he said. Her voice was almost a whisper. "I know, but not today." And that's when I saw it, when she turned slightly toward him and he placed a hand on her back, not as a friend or even a comfort, but with familiarity, intimacy. That touch told me more than any words ever could. He wasn't just somebody, he was hers. And the thing behind the door, the thing I locked last night, wasn't a thing at all. It was someone, and I had no idea who. I stayed in the closet for 17 minutes. I counted. 17 long, breath-stopping minutes. That's how long they stood in the hallway, whispering in half sentences. I couldn't make out most of it, just fragments. Her voice, low and clipped, said things like, "Not yet," and "He'll ruin everything." His was deeper, slower, and creepier for the fact that he never raised it. Like he was always in control, like he didn't need to raise it. My legs were going numb, my knees pressed against a vacuum hose, my whole body cramped into this tiny wooden prison. And the thing that scared me most, I didn't even feel embarrassed, just terrified of being found, terrified of knowing too much. Eventually, I heard them walk away. First her footsteps, soft, familiar, bedroom-bound, then his, heavier, retreating toward the front door. But he didn't leave right away. I heard the door open, then pause. A second passed, then another. And then, like he was aiming it directly at the closet, he said, "I think it knows." Not he. It. I don't know why that word hit me so hard, but it did. I stayed crouched, barely breathing, waiting for the door to slam, or for him to rip the closet open and pull me out. But instead, he left. I heard his boots scrape across the concrete. The door shut. Silence. I didn't move for another minute. I wanted to burst out and scream, cry, demand answers, do something. But I didn't. I crept out slowly, trying not to make a sound. My legs were tingling, my back ached, but my ears were focused only on one thing: the laundry room door. It was closed again, fully, but not locked. That's when I saw something on the hallway table that hadn't been there earlier, a small wooden ring, maple, I think, hand-carved, uneven edges, the kind you might buy at a craft fair or whittle yourself during a nervous breakdown. It was sitting right next to my coffee mug, and it wasn't mine. I picked it up. It was warm, still warm. I didn't know if it belonged to the man or to whoever was in the laundry room, but it didn't matter. That thing had been placed there intentionally, like a message or a dare. Against every rational thought, I found myself reaching for the laundry room door. My hand hesitated just above the knob. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My wife was still in the bedroom. I could hear the faint shuffle of drawers opening, clothes hangers sliding. She was acting like everything was normal, like Sunday hadn't just cracked in half. The knob was cold. My fingers brushed it once, twice. Then I gripped it, turned, pulled, and found the room completely dark, but not empty. There was someone sitting in the corner, motionless, not restrained, not panicked, just still. They were facing the dryer, knees pulled to their chest, hair matted and long, wearing a hoodie I hadn't seen in years. My hoodie, the one I lost during a camping trip 2 autumns ago. They turned slightly at the sound of the door, but didn't speak, didn't even look at me. And in a voice barely above a whisper, they said, "Why did you lock me in again, Leonard?" That's my name. But the voice wasn't hers, and I had no idea who they were. My first instinct was to step back and slam the door shut. I didn't, but only because my body froze in a way I didn't recognize. Not fear, not shock, but a kind of warped recognition, like I was seeing something that had been hidden in my own memory for years and suddenly brought into sharp, painful focus. This person sitting on the laundry room floor wasn't just some stranger. They knew my name. And worse, they knew a version of it no one else used anymore: Leonard. Nobody called me that except one person, my older brother. But he drowned when I was 12. We were camping near White Hollow Lake, and he vanished during a midnight swim. I spent years in therapy trying to accept that I saw him go under and couldn't save him. He wasn't wearing a hoodie that night, but somehow, this one was the same color, slate blue, worn at the elbows, with the frayed drawstrings my mom used to scold him about. I stared at the figure, this silhouette hunched near the dryer, unmoving except for the shallow rise and fall of breath. They still hadn't looked at me. I needed to say something, anything, but my tongue felt like paper. Eventually, I managed to whisper, "Who are you?" A long pause. Then the figure finally turned their head, just enough for me to see the left side of their face. Gaunt, pale, like they hadn't seen sunlight in weeks, and one small, subtle scar just above the cheekbone. A scar I remembered. I had given him that scar. I threw a metal toy at him when I was 7, and it hit him square in the cheek. He bled like crazy. Our mom had screamed. I was grounded for a month. No one else knew about that scar. The figure smiled, barely, more like a twitch, and finally spoke again. "She said you forgot me, that you wanted to. That's why I'm down here." My throat closed. "Who said that?" He didn't answer. just pulled the hoodie tighter around himself and leaned his head back against the dryer with a soft thunk. "You buried me. Twice." Before I could process what he meant, I heard her voice behind me. My wife's voice. Calm, steady, like it had been rehearsed 1,000 times. "You weren't supposed to open that door." I turned. She was standing in the hallway holding a set of keys, not house keys, old keys. Brass, worn, notched like they belonged to another century. Her face was unreadable, blank in a way I'd never seen. I'd seen her angry, laughing, crying, even drunk. But this was something else. This was colder. "What is this?" I asked, voice shaking. "Who is that?" She didn't respond. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Yellowed, torn at the edges. She held it toward me, hand perfectly still. I took it and opened it slowly. Inside was a drawing, rough pencil lines, childlike and frantic, of 2 boys at a lake, one standing, one floating. And beneath it, in a handwriting that wasn't mine or hers, were the words, "Only one of us came back." My knees gave out. I dropped to the floor in the doorway of the laundry room, the paper trembling in my hands. My wife didn't move. The figure in the corner spoke one last time, so softly I barely heard him. "You never told them what really happened, did you?" I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even sit down. I stood in the hallway, in front of the laundry room, while she went about the rest of the evening like nothing had happened. She made tea, fed the cat, watched a show with the volume low like she was giving me space. But she never once brought up the boy in the laundry room, never asked me what I saw, never explained why she had that drawing or who wrote it. I opened the folded paper again, at least a dozen times. My hands were sweating and the graphite was beginning to smudge. The words still read the same. "Only one of us came back." But it was the drawing that started to disturb me more. The waterline was too detailed, drawn again and again in overlapping pencil strokes, as if whoever made it had stared at that lake for hours, obsessing over its shape. There were scribbled trees around it too, tall and spindly. And in the bottom corner, barely visible unless you tilted the paper toward the light, was a second sentence. "The house remembers." I had no idea what that meant. I didn't ask her about it. I couldn't. Not because I was scared of her, though part of me was, but because I was scared of me. I was scared that I had buried something so deep in my memory that it had grown into a stranger and come back wearing my brother's face. Around 3 a.m., I finally worked up the nerve to open the laundry room again. It was empty. No one on the floor, no sign of anyone ever being there. The air was dry, silent, still. I ran my hands along the walls, checked the small cabinet beneath the sink, even pulled the dryer forward to see if someone could have escaped through the back. Nothing. I closed the door slowly and locked it this time, like that would make a difference. The next day, she didn't speak to me at all. Not like she was mad. It was worse than that. She moved around me like I was a chair or a light switch, something she didn't need to interact with directly. I watched her check her email, water the spider plant, even laugh quietly at something on her phone. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to say, "Tell me what I saw. Tell me what you did." But I didn't. Instead, I opened the attic. It had been sealed shut for months. We said we were renovating it, but never got around to it. The paint on the pull-down hatch was cracking, and I had to use a butter knife to pry it open. When I climbed up, the smell hit me instantly. Not dust, not mold, paper, burnt paper, and something else. Something more acidic, like scorched plastic. The attic was full of old boxes we hadn't touched in years, but shoved into the far right corner was something I didn't remember putting there. A dollhouse, not a toy, a model. It was an exact replica of our home. Every detail perfect, even down to the chipped kitchen tile near the pantry, the same window cracks, the same porch swing. I crouched beside it, heart racing, and saw that inside the miniature house were little paper cutouts of 2 people, one standing in the kitchen, the other lying down in the hallway. There was no third figure, not until I lifted the miniature laundry room roof. Inside that tiny room, curled in the same corner where I saw him days ago, was a third figure, scribbled in pencil, faceless, with one long tear running down the side of its head, like someone had tried to erase it, but failed. I blinked. My hands were shaking, and then I heard it, from behind me, from the real laundry room below. A soft, deliberate knock, 3 times. No one else was home. At least, I thought no one was. I didn't go down right away. I stayed crouched in the attic, staring at the dollhouse like it had just asked me a question I couldn't answer. The knock from the laundry room below came again, 3 soft raps spaced evenly apart. It wasn't threatening. It was worse. Polite. It was the sound someone makes when they know you're home and they've been here before, when they know how this house works better than you do. I leaned closer to the miniature house, tracing my fingers across its tiny roof. Every detail was too exact. The front steps were chipped in the same places as ours. The paint on the left window frame peeled back in a curl I only just noticed yesterday on the real house. And then I saw something I hadn't seen before. Something wrong. The floor plan. It wasn't quite right. The layout of the model was familiar up to the hallway. Kitchen, living room, bedroom, laundry room, all correct. But at the far end of the hallway in the dollhouse, past where our bedroom should have been, was a room I'd never seen. A rectangular space with a narrow door, no windows, and a tiny shape drawn on the floor. It looked like a spiral. We didn't have that room. Our house ended in the bedroom. That was the back wall. Except when I really thought about it, I realized I had never once seen the blueprints for this house. We bought it in a rush, sight unseen except for a virtual tour during the peak of COVID. Her friend Tabitha was the realtor. She handled everything, and I trusted her, because back then, trust was automatic, easy, expected. I pushed away from the dollhouse and back toward the attic stairs, feeling the air tighten around me. I descended one slow step at a time, barely letting the ladder creak. The knock hadn't returned. The laundry room was silent again. The hallway below was dark. When I reached the bottom, I turned toward the laundry room, door still shut, and walked past it. Not because I wasn't curious, I was, but because something else had started to itch in my brain. That spiral room in the dollhouse, the one that didn't exist, I needed to check. I had to prove it wasn't real. I walked through our bedroom and toward the back wall. Everything looked normal. Same headboard, same dusty ceiling fan, same crooked painting of a pine forest she insisted on keeping above the dresser. But when I pressed my hand against the wall behind the bed, something happened that nearly stopped my heart. It moved. Not a lot, just a soft give beneath my palm. The wall breathed. At first I thought I was imagining it. Maybe the heat was warping the wood. Maybe it was all in my head. But then I leaned in and listened, ear pressed against the drywall. And I swear to you, there was a hum, faint, rhythmic, not mechanical, organic, like a heartbeat. I stumbled back, knocking over the lamp on the nightstand, and that's when she appeared again, my wife, in the doorway. Calm, dressed like she was going to brunch. She didn't look surprised to see me pressed against the wall. "I was wondering when you'd find it," she said. I backed away from her instinctively. "What is this? What's behind the wall?" She tilted her head slightly, the way she always did when she was about to lie to someone she thought was too stupid to see through it. "It's not behind the wall, Leonard. It is the wall." My mouth was dry. "What does that mean?" She smiled, a sad, almost pitying smile, and walked over to the dresser. She opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a key, long, blackened, curved at the teeth like a broken rib. She held it out toward me, but didn't move closer. "I'm not supposed to open it," she said. "It has to be you." I stared at the key. "Open what?" I asked, my voice breaking. She nodded toward the far corner of the room, the one we never moved the wardrobe from. I turned slowly, my entire body on fire with dread. There was nothing there, until I looked closer. Just behind the edge of the wardrobe, barely visible in the shadows, was a hairline crack in the wall, and the faint outline of a door I'd never seen before. I stood there for a long time, staring at the crack in the wall. It wasn't like the rest of the house. The lines around it didn't match the drywall seams or the trim. It looked drawn in, etched by hand, maybe even carved with something sharp. There was no knob, no frame, just the outline. And yet, now that I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. It wasn't hidden. It was waiting. I turned back toward her, my wife, hoping somehow that she'd step in and say it was a prank, or a test, or some twisted joke to punish me for forgetting anniversaries or leaving dishes in the sink. But she was already gone. The doorway was empty, not just of her, but of everything. I took a step toward the hallway, and suddenly it felt longer than it should have been. Deeper, dimmer, like the air itself had thickened. I tried to call her name. I don't know why. Instinct, I guess. But when I opened my mouth, the sound didn't come out. Not silence, just nothing. Like the idea of my voice had been removed. So I turned back to the crack. My hand still clutched the strange key she had handed me, its weight somehow increasing with each second. It didn't look like it should fit anything in this house. Not modern, not practical. More like something you'd find in a museum next to a rusted lockbox full of teeth. I pressed it toward the wall. I didn't even need to find a keyhole. As the tip touched the center of the crack, the door gave way. The wall folded inward with a quiet pop, like a vacuum seal breaking. The space behind it wasn't dark. It wasn't anything like I expected. In fact, it glowed. Soft amber light spilled out into the bedroom, illuminating the walls in pulsing patterns. And at the center of it all, carved into the floor of the narrow room beyond, was the spiral. It wasn't drawn. It wasn't even painted. It was alive. The spiral pulsed, dim to bright, like a slow breath. Its shape was exact, a perfect Fibonacci swirl, and on the walls surrounding it were hundreds of tiny paper scraps, each pinned to the wood with rusted nails. I stepped inside. I couldn't help it. The air changed immediately. It smelled like old paper and ozone. I felt static on my arms, the hair standing up. As I walked around the spiral, I read some of the papers on the wall. Most were illegible, torn pages, smeared ink, scratched out letters. But a few still spoke clearly. You forgot again. He's still in the lake. Stop digging. And one, pinned at eye level, that froze my entire body. You are not Leonard. I took a step back, suddenly dizzy. The light pulsed harder. The room began to hum, a low, unplaceable sound that vibrated behind my teeth. I wanted to run. I wanted to tear every page from the wall and set them all on fire. But then I saw it. A mirror. At the far end of the spiral room, hung crookedly above a small wooden desk, was a mirror covered in dust. Not old dust, fresh. Like someone had wiped it clean and smeared it again. I stumbled toward it, reaching out with trembling fingers. When I wiped it, I didn't see my reflection. I saw the laundry room, the figure sitting in the corner. Only now he was standing, facing me, smiling. And he mouthed something I'll never forget. We switched, remember? He mouthed those words again. We switched, remember? And this time, I didn't look away. The mirror shimmered slightly, not like glass, but like water. And for the first time, I felt something shift inside me. Not fear, not dread. Something older, something like recognition. I stared at the boy in the mirror. Not a ghost, not a hallucination, not some dark twin. And I finally saw him clearly. He wasn't trying to haunt me. He wasn't trying to punish me. He was trying to come home. I remembered the lake. I remembered the way the water pulled at us, cold and endless. I remembered how he had gone under, how I had screamed and no one heard. But what I hadn't remembered until this exact moment, what I had buried deeper than anything, was that I had gone in after him, and I pulled him out. But I forgot what came next. It wasn't that he drowned, it was me. I was the one who slipped below the surface and didn't come back the same. The trauma, the grief, the therapy. It wasn't about loss. It was about returning broken. I came home, but left something behind. The boy in the mirror wasn't angry. He was waiting for me to remember. The moment I did, the mirror didn't shatter, or vanish, or pull me in like some horror movie. Instead, it warmed, glowed, and slowly began to fade. Behind it wasn't glass at all. It was light, a soft, golden light that filled the spiral room, peeling back the shadows, the paper notes, the trembling static in the air. The spiral itself began to flatten, melting into the floor like a puddle evaporating in the sun. The pages fluttered free and dissolved in the air. I could breathe again. When I turned, she was standing in the doorway, my wife, but not like before. She looked tired, real, no secrets in her posture, no half-lies in her expression, just worry. And maybe something else. Hope. She held out her hand, and I took it. We didn't say anything. We didn't need to. I stepped out of the spiral room, and the wall closed behind me, this time for good. No hidden seam, no strange key, no echo of humming. Just drywall and silence. The house exhaled, as if finally allowed to rest. In the days that followed, the laundry room felt normal again. The air didn't buzz, the walls didn't breathe. I even opened the attic once more, and the dollhouse was gone, replaced by a box of my old college notebooks I hadn't seen in years. We started going on walks again, holding hands again, laughing even. Real laughter, not the kind that covers up the cracks. She told me she knew something had been wrong with me for a long time, but she didn't know how to reach me. The house, she said, changed after we moved in. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe it just gave me a language for the grief I never finished speaking. One morning, I found the wooden maple ring sitting on the windowsill. I slipped it on. It fit perfectly. I didn't ask where it came from. I already knew. Sometimes healing isn't about forgetting the pain. Sometimes it's about looking directly at it, forgiving the version of you that couldn't carry it anymore, and letting him step out of the corner. And sometimes the house doesn't need to be exorcised. It just needs to be heard.